The title of our message tonight is Cast is the feet that treads the path to Endor. Endor is the village where King Saul went to see a witch doctor. I know we are familiar with these villages. Cast is the feet that treads the path to Endor. So far we have learned that marriage indeed is a spiritual battlefield with two powers interested in it. God, the originator, is fighting to defend it because he has no backup plan for repopulating heaven. Satan, on the other hand, fights to destroy it because of envy and jealous. He cannot stand the thought that humanity will fill up the vacancies he left in heaven with a third of the angels. So don't look at marriage as a physical affair. It is an institution, it is a unit that both powers, spiritual, have an interest in it. They are battling for it. Your victory or defeat is based on which side you choose to lean on. If you lean on Satan, you have a seeming victory that ultimately leads to defeat. And I've said this a number of times. If you want to take someone's husband, do a thorough background check. If you realize his wife is a serious daughter of God, do not try it at home. Don't. But if you find you're dealing with a woman who has no time for God, that one you can take as soon as yesterday. Just cross over to Hispania here and see a witch doctor and you take. But if you take a man that belongs to a prayerful woman, your victory will only last for a short time. But ultimately, you will lose. If you lean on God, you have a seeming defeat. It might even take years. But ultimately, it leads to victory. Our subject today is very uncommon because it is silent on our pulpits, but it is very, very loud in the Word of God. Cast is the feet that treads the path to Endor. There is war between Israel and the Philistines. Samuel is dead, the prophet, and so there is no one else to consult with whether they should move to the battlefield or not. And so Saul decides to inquire of the Lord, and the Lord did not answer him either by dreams or by Urim or by the prophets, is what the word of the Lord records. Allow me to do 1 Samuel chapter 28, verse 1 to 4. Now it happened in those days that the Philistines gathered their armies together for war to fight with Israel. And Achish said to David, "You assuredly know that you will go out with me to battle, you and your men." So David said to Achish, "Surely you know what your servant can do. And Achish said to David, therefore I will make you one of my chief guardians forever. Now Samuel had died, and all Israel had lamented for him and buried him in Ramah, in his own city. And Saul had put the mediums and the spiritists out of the land. Then the Philistines gathered together and came and encamped at Shunem. So Saul gathered all Israel together, and they encamped at Gilboa. So there is a serious problem, there is a serious challenge, there is a crisis. Me to do verse 5 and 6. When Saul saw the army of the Philistines, he was afraid, and his heart trembled greatly. And when Saul inquired of the Lord did not answer him either by dreams or by Urim or by the prophets. So there's a challenge, there's a battle, there's a serious problem, it's a crisis, there's war looming. I want to say this, beloved, that the life we live today, this life, is about numerous battles. So many, but they all summarize one big battle. The battle between light and darkness. It's a battle between good and evil. It's a battle between truth and error. A battle between God and Satan. Spirit of prophecy calls it the great controversy. You could be going through a parenting crisis. That reminds me, when I gave birth to my firstborn was a very good girl. From a very tender age, she learned to go to church from morning till evening. As she grows up, if you go with her to church, where you have put her to sit, she'll sit there till evening, unless she wants to go for short call. So when I saw people's children running in church, I wondered, what is wrong with some children? When some parents have not trained their children. I had a good girl. She's still a very good girl to date. She's 16. Until I got a second one. And I learned to shut my mouth. You could be going through a parenting crisis. It could be a health crisis. It could be a financial crisis. It could be some education crisis, marital crisis. Victory or defeat is based on three major things. Write them down, go home with it. For you to emerge victorious, it will depend on three major things. Number one, your understanding of the crisis. There are only two sides to it, regardless of how you want to look at it, regardless of its nature. It is either spiritual, it is either physical. You learn to look at it spiritually. If you find that is difficult for you, you choose to look at it physically. How do you understand it? A young girl calls me over marital crisis, and I love to do counseling, but I find telephone counseling a little bit challenging. I want, when I sit with you, I look into your eyes, I want to see you cry, I want to see you do everything, to know whether you're serious. You could be lying to me on phone. So we talk, and then she asks me, Pastor, what if this guy just knows what she is doing? This guy knows what he's doing. Let us assume it is not a spiritual warfare. Let us assume it is physical. And she insisted, this guy knows what he's doing. So I told her, you need to choose whether we are fighting this spiritually or we want to fight it physically. If you want us to fight it spiritually, I am here. If you want us to fight it physically, look for a psychologist. Number 2, your connection with God. How well do you know God? Because at the end of the day, the battle is not yours, the battle belongs to who? How well do you know Him? To be able to trust Him with the battle, regardless of the outcome. Things are growing from bad to worse, from worse to worst, but you still choose to trust God with the results. Or you want your results as soon as yesterday. What is your connection with God? How well do you know Him? Number 3, your social circle. Who are your friends? Who's advising you? And at times it's your mother advising you. You have refused to detach from your mother. It is your mother running your marriage. It is your father running your marriage. Your husband cannot move an inch. Anything he tells you, you must consult with your mother and father. Let's take our children to Migori Primary. I'll tell you the answer tomorrow. You want to call your mother and father. Jakamagambo, owachonia, ni water nyithindo Migori Primary School. The son of Kamagambo has said, we take our children to Migori Primary School. And your parents are like, that man works. Why should we take our grandchildren to... When your parents still have a say. And when it gets a little bit tough, your mother tells you, my girl, come back home. You have a home. You have a mother and a father. And you're also stupid enough to pack and go back home to your mother. Can't you see your mother is lying to you? She's with her husband. Your mother is with her husband, but she's helping you break your marriage. What is your social circle looking like? Is it composed of women who have decided to let go and are encouraging you to also let go? And you think their lives are moving? It's good to have godly friends at times. Verse 5 says this. When Saul saw the army of the Philistines, he was afraid and his heart trembled greatly. It's normal to be afraid. And at times that fear creates so much anxiety that makes you imagine the future. You begin to imagine the future. You've just learned your husband is living with another woman. You already begin to imagine how the future will look like. And you begin to live that future in the present. So you're living the future in the present. And when Saul inquired of the Lord did not answer him either by dreams or by Urim or by the prophets. Urim was stones. It was Urim and Thummim. There were stones on the breastplate, I think, of the high priest, if I'm not wrong. If they wanted to know the will of God, you just go talk. And if God is agreeing with it, they shine. Don't you think that would be the best way to work today? If you want to know who is your future husband, you just go and say, God, I've met this guy. He's really pushing me into a relationship. He's called Derek Odhiambo Ouma. Is he the one? And it does this. It shines. Then you know it is him. Today those things are not there. You have to seek the face of God. And some of us regret the marriages we got into. We really regret. Today we keep on seeing Otieno that you refused his hand in marriage. And you keep saying, you see that Otieno? Imagine I'm the one who should have been his wife. Otieno is really prosperous. But you see, that time Otieno only had a pair of shoes every Sabbath to church with a belt that is beginning to peel. So you look at him and you're like, hey, today Otieno drives a Prado. Otieno is always in a suit. Otieno is shining. It's no longer the TBT. Otieno is moving. That would have been my husband. My time is moving so fast, we are not even halfway. Wherever we will reach, we will finish tomorrow, don't get? Yes. I'm not even halfway.